Now it's time for another Board Game Brawl preview with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey now, my name is Nick, this is Board Game Brawl, and today we're going to be taking a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called The Networks from Formal Ferret Games. Now, if you like what you see throughout the rest of this preview video, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page. I'll have a link at the bottom of your screen now, down in the description section of the video, and also at the end of the video that will take you to the page. Find out even more information than I could possibly tell you here, and hopefully consider backing the project. Now, what is The Networks? This is a competitive Euro-style game where each player takes control of a new network executive. You have your own channel now, and you have to fill it with programs that you think people are going to like. Now, in the beginning, your programs are pretty terrible, but you can get and develop new shows and also fill them with stars and with ad time, and also get special network privileges that are going to help you out along the way, all with the goal of not only generating income to keep the channel going, but also eventually to get as many viewers as possible and get more viewers than your opponents. Let me give you a brief look at the game with a prototype version of the game, so keep that in mind. A lot of the things that you see are going to change in the final version. Then we're going to come back. I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, I'm going to give you a brief look at The Networks from Formal Ferret Games. This is a competitive game for 1 to 5 players. Now, if you play with 1, 2, or 3 players, there are some changes and adjustments you have to make. I'm just going to focus on the 4 to 5 player game for right now. Now, as I mentioned before this, do know that this is a prototype copy of the game. The final version of the game is going to have artwork on any of the places where you just see blank spaces here, so it'll look much better in its final version. Now, in this game, everyone takes control of a network executive who is trying to fill their lineup of shows in order to get the most viewers possible. The winner of the game is the person who has the most viewers at the end of 5 seasons of play. You count up your viewers at the end of every round and accrue them. Then at the end, you do that an additional time. Whoever has the most is going to be the winner. Now, there is quite a bit of setup in the game. First and foremost, you have the scoring boards here in the center, which also have the turn order track. So this is where you're going to keep your scoring chips, which will start off on 0 and they'll move around. Those, of course, are the viewers. Then you have the turn order track, which will be randomized at the beginning, but it's going to definitively change at the in every season as players drop out of the current round and get to take their new turn order spot. I'll cover all that when we get to it. Then we have the actual season track here. Remember, these are prototype components. I just want to point that out. So a lot of the things that you see here may change in the final bit. Then you have this sort of setup card here, which will tell you a few different things. First off, it tells you how many cards you have to have out in play for each of the different types of cards, the stars, the ads, the networks, and the shows. This will change depending on the number of players, so this is a 4-player setup. Then you have the starting money that everyone's going to get in turn order, so whoever is the first player randomly at the beginning of the game is only going to get $5. For this purposes of this prototype, you have these chips that keep track of your money. And then you get more as you go back in the turn order. And then you have the budget track here, which I'll just go ahead and explain now. When you drop out of a round and decide you don't want to do any more actions for the current round, for the current season, then you're going to put your turn order marker in the highest available spot here. That is going to set the turn order for the next season, and you also get some budget income as an aside. Also, as is noted right here, when you get through the first season of play, you are actually going to flip this card over and the score track will extend. That shows that you're out of the first season, you're out of the setup season, and notice that the budgetary constraints change as well. The big difference is that when you decide to drop out, you get either income or you get extra viewers. You decide which, not both, one or the other. And that's only from Season 2 onwards. Other setup in the game, you're going to have a randomized row of star cards and ad cards, as I mentioned. You'll shuffle those up and put them out. I should mention as well that I'm just assuming every card here is in play, but there are actually advanced cards that you can choose not to use if it's your first time playing the game. Then you have the actual show cards, which are the shows that you're trying to develop as a network executive. You'll have the Season 1 cards that you'll randomize and put out, again, depending on the number of players. And you'll have Season 2 and 3 cards and Season 4 and 5 cards that are only going to come out, of course, when you get to those appropriate seasons. You're also going to have network cards. This is another advanced variant because these normally wouldn't be out if you're playing for the first time in Season 1, but from Season 2 onwards, they will be available, and this is another thing where you have a certain number of them depending on the number of players. Each player is going to get a player board, so I'll break this down for you here. You have spots over here called the green room, the reruns, and archives. I'll cover where each of those goes as I explain how the game works. But you're going to have a starting star card and a starting ad card. Now, every player has pretty much the same allotment of starting cards and shows. They just have different names. But these are the show cards. But they are just your starting cards. You're supposed to just get a little bit of income and viewership from them, but mainly you want to replace them with better shows right away. So you'll have your starting shows. You can put these in any spot that you want. It doesn't really matter right now. Then here you'll have just a cheat sheet for all of your for how the game is played, and then you'll actually have a scoring calculator. At the end of every round, you're going to be scoring all your viewers, and you can make use with this little cube of this. It's purely just there as a convenience to help you keep track of all the numbers. So the easiest way to explain the game is just to take you through the turn order. As I said, this is the kind of game where every player is going to take an action and then move on to the next player. So I'll take one action, then the blue player is going to take one action, then the green player is going to take one action, and so on, going around and around until someone decides to drop out. When you drop out and you get your budget, then you are out for the rest of the season, but the other players can continue to take actions for as long as they want or as long as they can before deciding to drop out. You might want to drop out early in order to get a better budget and also to take your turns faster in the next round. That is entirely up to you. Now, there are 6 main types of actions that you can take during the course of the game. The first type of action is developing a show, and that's where we go to the network, or no, sorry, not the network cards, the show cards that you'll be able, that will give different shows that you want to put into your lineup. Now let me give you a breakdown of what's on these cards. First off, notice that these are both color-coded and they also have a symbol up in the top corner. This is the genre of the show. So you have comedy, you have action, you have science fiction, and so on. So the main point of this is that you actually get bonuses the first time you get to either 3 genre episodes, 3 genre series, or then 5 genre series. And so there's a little bit of set collection to the game. If you get to those points, you're actually going to be able to get bonus cards, like you might get extra network cards, star cards, ad cards, or you might be able to turn money directly into viewers, just as a bonus for getting more cards of the same genre. So you do want to focus as much as possible. Underneath that is the preferred time slot. So when you take cards, you're going to put them into the time slots on the side of your player board and cancel the show that's already there. When you cancel the show, it goes into your rerun section, which I'll get back to during the end of round stuff. But if you're able to put it in the spot that that show prefers, then you're going to be able to get some extra viewers in that first season. So it's something to keep in mind for sure. So we'll run right into that. Here's the viewers that are potentially you're going to gain when you put this show into your lineup. So in the first season, you'll put your starting cube there, just like it was on the side of your starting show cards. And no matter when you grab the show, let's say you take the Old Folks Complaining show in the second season, you still put your cube on the first season because, of course, that show in particular is still in its first season. And if you put it in its preferred time slot, you're going to get the bigger number there. If not, you're going to get the lesser number. But then when you get to seasons 2, 3, and 4, if the show makes it that long, then it doesn't matter if it's in its preferred time slot or not. That's how many viewers you're going to get. But do notice that the number of viewers drops precipitously when it gets into that 4th season, so you're probably going to want to cancel it by that point. Now, in order to develop the show at all, you need to meet the requirements. The first requirement is money. So this is the amount of money that you need to pay to actually develop these shows and put them into your lineup. But then at the bottom of the card, there may be additional requirements. Anytime that you see a colored box with either the star or the money symbol, that means you are required to have that. In this case, you must have exactly 1 star in order to attach to the wacky TSA agent show. Whereas down here, you must have exactly 1 ad to attach to that show. Sometimes it's going to give you the option of one or the other as purely optional, but not both. And sometimes it'll say something like you need 1 star, and you may have an ad if you want. Now down in the bottom corner here, this is the rerun viewership. So when a show has been canceled, it'll go into your rerun pile, and at the end of that round, you're still going to get an extra little viewer bonus because you've put that show into reruns and it won't cost you any money, but then it's going to go away and you won't have it for the next season. Now up in the top corner of some of the cards, you'll notice another monetary cost. That is the upkeep cost
for the card. At the end of every season, you're going to have to pay the budget for those shows to keep them on the air if you want to keep them on the air. But do note that if you can't pay all the upkeep costs for all of your different shows at the end of the season, you're going to lose viewership instead. So to sum up, the developing a show action is literally taking one of the shows in the lineup, canceling a show that is, let's see, I want to put this in the 10 p.m. slot, canceling one of the shows that's already there, let me get that on camera, putting the season marker on it to show which season that it's in, retiring the old show and making it into a rerun, and of course paying any costs associated with that show, which in this case it is required to have an ad. So there you go. And now I'll have an extra income bonus because I have an ad on this show. Now, one of the other actions I'll just go ahead and mention now is actually attaching a star or an ad, because remember when I said that there were some of the shows that said it was optional to add a star or an ad? If that is the case, then you can put that show into your lineup right now, and then at a later time, you can take the action to attach an ad or a star or an ad from your green room directly onto that show. But if it is required to do so right away, you have to have the ad or the star available in your green room to attach right away. Two of the other actions in the show are signing a star or buying or accepting an ad submission. And they work in pretty different ways, even though they both revolve around attaching them to different shows potentially, but first putting them into your green room. So for signing stars, you need to pay a signing cost just the same way as you would for taking a show, and some of the stars have an upkeep cost as well, again, just like shows. When it's attached to a show, then you're going to gain the viewership bonus there depending on what season it is. So in season 1, you're going to get an extra 4 viewers on top of what you're already getting, and so on and so forth. However, it is possible that you'll end up with a worse amount of viewers depending on whether or not you can meet the requirements. So Physical Comedy Master here says that you have to rotate this card unless the show is a sitcom. So if this star, the Physical Comedy Master, is attached to a sitcom, you get to keep it on the good side here. But if not, you have to rotate it and attach it this way where you see that the viewership count is lower. The ads work in kind of the same way, but there's an important difference. You'll notice that instead of paying costs for these ads, you're gaining money. So when you take this ad, you actually get that bonus, and then at the end of every season, you'll also gain that income as well. But again, if these ads aren't attached to the right time slots, you're going to have to rotate them and get a worse income. So like, for instance, rotate unless show is on at 8 p.m. In that case, instead of getting $2 every season, I'd only get $1. The last type of cards you can take are the network cards. These are like special ability cards that you can use during the course of the game, and there's several kinds of them. There are some, like with the exclamation mark, that say that they must be used immediately as soon as you take them. There are some, like Flexible Schedule here, that have a one-time use ability, so you grab it, put it in front of you, and then you can use it when the time is right, but then it's gone. Some of them, and these are only advanced cards, have this little infinity loop, which says that you put it in front of you, and you have that ability constantly for the rest of the game. Some of them also have to do with only end game scoring, which means that you'll keep it in front of you, and then at the end of the game you'll get a special amount of points depending on the conditions on the card. I should also point out that at the bottom of the card there are a bunch of symbols here. Those only have to do with the solo and 2-player game, so we're not really going to talk about those here. But the audition card here says, to go through these examples, when you take this card, you draw a star and keep it for free. So you don't have to pay it, you take it straight off the top of the star deck, and you get to put it into your green room for free. Investigative Journalism, now this is an interactive card, which again, this is an optional type of card, just like the advanced cards, but they have a little more interaction with the players. So Investigative Journalism says all other players immediately rotate one star or ad of your choice on an active show. Flexible Schedules is a one-time use card. You discard this card during show scoring to consider a new show as being in its preferred time slot. And Preempted Time Slot, this is one of the advanced ongoing cards. You may immediately drop in budget after an action. Discard to get 2 viewers after you drop in budget. And speaking of that, the last type of action you can take on your turn is dropping and budgeting, which I already kind of explained. You drop out, choose your new turn order for the next round, and get a compensation of money or viewers depending on whether you're in Season 2 or not. And that's pretty much the flow of the game. You're going to be taking multiple cards in order to develop your shows, make them better with stars, get more income with ads, use network cards to give yourself special abilities, and so on. When everyone has dropped and budgeted out of a round, then you are going to go through a number of steps. First and foremost, you see what your income and expenses are. You're going to add up all the different shows in their upkeep costs, the money
money that you're getting from ads and so on. Use the calculator if you have to. Determine how much money you owe, if anything. Sometimes you're actually going to be gaining money depending on how you're running your network. Then you're going to go on to actually scoring your viewers. You'll look at all the shows that you have and how many viewers are going to give you. Obviously, you'll have better shows than the starter ones. And add together the viewers are going to get from stars and from ads and also from possibly rerun cards as well. And then, again, use your scoring calculator because that's what it's there for. Then you're going to move your scoring marker appropriately to the number of viewers that you gain. You're going to do that for seasons. All of this that I'm telling you, you're going to do for seasons 1 through 5. You'll age your shows at the end of each season, which means you're going to move your scoring marker on the, or not scoring marker, but just the marker on each of these on your shows down to show that it's getting a little bit long in the tooth and your viewership is probably going to go down. And then you just set up for next season, which involves clearing away any cards that are still left in the lineup, putting new cards out. If you're in seasons 2 through 5, then you're going to use the appropriate cards to put them out, and so on and so forth. Then, at the end of Season 5, you're going to do everything at the end of season just as you would in the other 4 seasons, but then you're going to score your viewers from your shows and your stars again after you do the normal Season 5 scoring. At that point, and you'll just move that there for the hell of it, at that point, then you are going to add everything up, see who has the most viewers. Whoever has the most is going to be the winner of the game with appropriate tiebreakers and such. That is a quick and dirty rundown of the networks. Hopefully it gives you a flavor for what a 4 or 5 player of the game, 4 or 5 player version of the game would be like. Now, let's get to my final thoughts. Now, the theme is the strongest thing about the networks. It's the first thing I noticed when I first found out about the game and found out some information about it. And when I played it, I'm like, wow, this theme works very, very well with the mechanisms of the game itself. But also, it's just a theme that I haven't seen too much. I've seen some, I think, easier, simpler games and party games utilize a theme like this. But to have this kind of theme on a very strategic, not too heavy, but definitely a strategic game is refreshing, and it works very well. I mean, I've seen a lot of Euro-style resource management games that claim to have a theme, but it really feels paced on. It doesn't come across very well as you're playing the game. But in the case of the networks, everything makes sense with the theme married to the mechanisms. You're developing shows, you're getting actors, putting them in your green room, and then using them on the shows, getting ad time. You want to make sure that shows are in the right time slot in order that they can prosper and make you more income, get you more viewers, but eventually shows start to get a little long in the tooth, and as seasons go by, they start to get less and less viewers, you get diminishing returns, and then you put them into reruns in order to get just a little smidge of viewers more out of it before it goes away forever. All of these things make a lot of sense to me as someone who, keeps up with TV, watches TV, knows a lot about what happens behind the scenes of television stations just because I'm into that sort of thing and I like it. So it makes sense to me, and I'm glad that finally we have a game like this that is a resource management, strategic, almost tactical game of taking actions that actually has a theme that makes sense and works very well for it. The game is, even though it is, strategic and heavy in areas as far as trying to puzzle out your next move and what you want to do in order to maximize your viewership and income, it's still a relatively easy game to learn. I think that even younger people and casual gamers can get into it, especially because of that theme, which is going to help, get their foot in the door and really get them interested in it and willing to learn. I think even though the prototype copy of the game that I had in my overview did not have the final artwork in it, if you go to the Kickstarter page and see the artwork for the game, it makes a lot of sense together with that theme. It's very attractive, it's kind of quirky and weird and funny, and that really goes along with the funny, cheesy names of all the different television programs that you can put into your schedule, which is another thing that I think a lot of people are going to appreciate. It's a game that, even though it does have a lot of strategy to it, does not take itself too seriously, which again is a bit refreshing in this genre of games. So I think that people who love the theme, who are into that whole television thing of programming your own network, people who like, strategic resource management games, things like Imperial Settlers. That's kind of the vibe that I got as I was playing this. Imperial Settlers being one of my favorite games, where you're going back and forth, taking actions in a circle, trying to maximize your resources, in this case, income and viewership. If people like that kind of game that and also who are into that kind of theme, this is really going to be a slam dunk, and you should definitely check it out. I'm going to have a link at the bottom of your screen now, and also down in the description section of the video. That's going to take you to the official Kickstarter project page. Don't take my word for it. Find out for yourself. Get some information about it. See if it's right for you, and hopefully consider backing the project. That was The Networks from Formal Ferret Games. Do check it out. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.